I listened, and I thought, and I listened, and I thought, and I still come back to what I thought at the very beginning. If anybody asks me why, it's Indiana. It's Indiana.
He knew he had a rebuild project, but he didn't know the extent of that. And he never complained, and he never looked back, he never expressed regret, he never looked for the parachute out. He just fought through it.
When I first got here, I mean, it speaks for itself. I mean, it was a tough couple of years for Coach Crean, but it seemed like on his recruiting, when he was recruiting me, he just seemed like he was so energetic about what he wanted to do to this program and how he wanted to get it back.
And I told Tom, I said, man, you've leaving Marquette, you missed the opportunity to rack up more wins. There were some really dark days, but the greatest story ever told will be the return of Indiana University basketball.
Then went back in, 19 for him. Here comes Riddell Jones. 3 seconds, 2 seconds. Riddell all the way outside to Watford. 3 on the way. Oh! It went in! It went in! And Indiana wins the ball game. Tristan Watford with a 3.
In April of 2008, Indiana University chose a new man to lead their storied basketball program. He was charged with the task of taking the program in a new direction and restoring pride in one of the paragon programs in the sport's history. The man they turned to was Tom Crean, a dynamic leader who had turned the once-struggling Marquette team into one of the most successful in the country. Taking over a depleted roster that featured walk-ons and a few baseball players, Crean led the least experienced team in the country over the next 3 seasons. The Hoosiers made steady progress, but the Cream and Crimson continued to battle key injuries and inexperience. But in the immediate aftermath of the 2010-2011 season, the makings of a remarkable turnaround started to take shape.
The season ended, and we literally got back on it the very next week.
I said, we're not going to have another bad season. That was the way they approached their practices, games, preparation. They didn't want to lose anymore, and you could just tell and you could see it.
They were proud of what they were able to accomplish to that point under the circumstances, but that didn't overwhelm them in the sense of their personality being negative or arrogant or anything like that. These guys understood that they needed some help, and these other guys were there to help fix this situation.
People talking about the season grew when the announcement of Cody Zeller signing with Indiana occurred.
And next year I'm going to go to IU.
It was definitely an exciting time just because the recruiting process took so long. It kind of all culminated into one day, and it was exciting just to announce it to everyone else. I was very confident with my decision, but it's kind of a weight off my back.
When Cody first got here, and Austin and Remy, and to see those guys battle and to try to raise their standard to the high standard that the veterans had already gotten to.
The addition of Cody, Austin, and Remy were a factor.
With Cody, I moved him into running with the guards instead of running with the big guys because that's what he could do. So why am I going to hold him back? So when other guys see him doing what Victor's doing, what Will's doing, running right neck and neck with those guys, with Jordan, then you have no choice but to play hard for the guy.
When you saw how they were getting along, when you saw what the new guys were bringing and how the veteran guys were helping bring them along quickly, you saw the makings of something that was different.
It was no longer me having to yell and scream and get on guys. It was their teammates getting on them, and so I could really kind of sit back and observe what was going on because the culture was really changing within our team.
It's player-driven for one since I've been here. The players are punishing each other now, or the players are getting on each other, telling each other what to do, correcting each other, and it's really competing and after it. So it's actually fun to go to now.
We're trying to have a real climb mentality in the sense if we're going to climb in this league, if we're going to climb back to where we want Indiana to be, it has to be a daily process and one that's not just about skill development and team development, but the mentality that you have to have. And I think that started for us in the spring. I thought we had an outstanding spring and one of the best I've been involved in.
Kids have worked so hard over the spring and summer to get better. When you work that hard trying to improve your craft, success is always going to follow.
The fruits of a productive offseason were on full display on a November night in Evansville. Many were skeptical Indiana could perform on the road against a quality opponent. Those doubts were laid to rest as the Hoosiers systematically dismantled the Purple Aces 94-73.
For me, Evansville was like the biggest game of the year because I was impactful in encouraging the team to play at Evansville. And that's a tough environment and a kind of a tough no-win deal. If you win, it's in some ways expected. If you lose, it's tough. So I was like, fellas, if you win any game, please win at Evansville.
Well, it really was a big test and a game that you were going to gauge just how far maybe you had come on the road.
So when you go into Evansville and you have such a great showing, I mean, that may have been as important of a win as anything, because you walked out of there saying, wow, we were significantly better than another team on the road.
They just took over that game, and they just had a confidence, and I remember the substitutions on the bench just became easier. You saw for the first time that there were people that could go in and, sub for different players, and you weren't losing a lot on the court.
Christian Watford had a big game. Will Sheehy, Derek Elston, Jordan Hulse. It was just a great team effort. Cody Zeller, obviously being close to home.
I had a lot of people there. Supported me from home, so I definitely wanted to play well. So I think it was a good night overall for me and the team, so it was definitely good to get us going throughout the season.
The feeling on the bus on the way home, the excitement, because I'd been on a lot of trips when it hadn't been as exciting on the way home. Just that ride back through southern Indiana, I remember riding in my seat and seeing a billboard, and it happened to have Cody on it. I think it was for tickets or something, and I remember just thinking, that's pretty cool. I'm on this team bus, we just won a big game, driving through the hills of southern Indiana, and there's a billboard of Cody while he's just back on his laptop working on something for school the next day.
It was really a perfect road win per se, and in an environment that gave you confidence moving forward and really would come into play a few weeks later when the team went to North Carolina State.
I think it was Game 7, Big Ten ACC Challenge down in Raleigh at the Reynolds Coliseum, and I'll remember that game for a number of reasons. First of all, the comeback the Hoosiers made in, I think it was final 3.5 minutes. We were down 7, came back, won that ball game.
It reinforced the team's ability to stick with its game plan, execute, and play good defense. And that's what that team did. That's what this group did.
They were down by a certain number of points with 7 minutes left, and I think that is when they all decided that they were going to win.
And that was the time when less mature teams or less confident teams might let it get away from them. They didn't.
I can still remember in the timeout when we were down and Coach talking to them about everything is fine, keep doing what we're doing, we'll get back in the game.
And they were able to come back, and Jordan Hulse proved again that he is not afraid to take the big shot. That's the most impressive part, to be down in the second half, come back, take a lead, hit a tough shot in a pressure situation, and then extend the lead and close out very strong.
And I think anytime you do that, especially against a quality opponent, you get some confidence that you can't teach them. They get themselves, and we walked out of there a very confident team that night.
When we got that road win, we kind of figured, we kind of knew we've not arrived, but we know we had a chance to be a great team. We just kind of kept getting better from then on.
Boy, all I could think about was how we came back and won, and I thought to myself, you know what, Game 7, Indiana's 7-0 here.
In the afterglow of the NC State win, Hoosier Nation welcomed back one of the most beloved teams in the school's history as the '87 championship team returned to Assembly Hall for the Stetson game. And quickly, the Hoosiers of yesteryear formed a bond with the team who was setting Indiana basketball on a new and exciting course.
For the '87 players, and one like Steve Alford, to say, I want to come back. And I know you're looking at my schedule at New Mexico where I coach, but I'll make adjustments. I'll fly in. I'll be there for a game if you have one that fits in well to the schedule. I mean, that says volumes.
It's a lot of fun being back here to where I'm not coaching against Indiana. The last couple times, that's what's had to happen. So this is a lot more fun, getting in Assembly Hall and seeing the banners that are raised. And, you were on a team that helped raise one of those banners.
They represent what Indiana's about. And the qualities, the attributes that they have our current players need to see that. They need to see what success looks like, and they need to see what it means to be an Indiana basketball player.
Anytime you can kind of build upon and look to teams that have won championships, you don't have to know who they are or even know how they played, but just to know what we did as a team.
I may have made the shot, but we all have the same championship ring, and that's what we've tried to communicate with each guy talking about how important the team was.
For them to be able to continue that tradition is very important, and to show them that it will get back to the prominence, because it's used to winning.
There's so much greatness here with that 87 team. That's something we've looked forward to. I think the players, as I said to them, this is something they'll look back on, having a chance to meet those guys and have them here and know they're behind the bench.
They had a great time back here, and it was great to honor that team as we've honored other teams in the past, and it was certainly great to have all those guys back, so many of them back, coaches, trainers, you name it, they came back. They thoroughly enjoyed the weekend, and anytime we can bring former players back or former coaches back, and that's what Indiana basketball has been about.